You were born with a legend inside you. From the very beginning, you felt something living inside. Not just a desire, not just ambition, but a warm light, like a fire that burns quietly in your chest. It cannot be explained in words. It doesn't require explanation. It's just there. The legend you came into this world with. Not for others. For yourself. To live it, and through it, to become yourself. She could be anything. To be the one who carries. Someone who leads. Someone who heals. Someone who tears down the old to reveal the new. Inside you from the beginning was something you couldn't name. Only felt. Like a call. The unstoppable knowledge that there is a way. And it's yours. You saw dreams that were not dreams. You felt signs that no one else saw. You knew there was something more. And that something more is not out there. It's inside. It wasn't about success. It wasn't about recognition. It was about truth. About yourself. And you wanted to go. You wanted to go. But something went wrong. You didn't lose your legend. You just stopped believing in it. The mask that promised safety. You began to see that the world didn't always want to see the real you. That being yourself was dangerous. Uncomfortable. Unacceptable. You began to adapt. Adjust. Looking for forms that would allow you to be accepted. You put on your first mask. It gave you protection. Then you put on the second. It gave you approval. Then another. And another. And then one day you realized you couldn't remember what your face was. You learned how to survive. But you forgot how to live. You became what you needed to be. What's right. What's comfortable. And your legend. She waited. Silently. Without rebuke. No demands. Just a quiet ache inside as a reminder. You began to believe that being yourself was a luxury. That your voice wasn't needed. That the truth is too much. That to feel is weakness. You became stronger, but not stronger. More visible, but not more alive. You didn't give up your legend because it disappeared. It was because you believed there was no place for it anymore. A shadow you didn't want to recognize. You learned too soon that to be alive is to feel pain, disappointment, loneliness, shame. You didn't know what to do about it. So you learned not to feel. You hid what you thought was ugly, weak, wrong. You tucked it all away, thinking that if you can't see it, it's gone. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It's just waiting for you to turn away so it can start controlling you. You started saying yes when you wanted to say no. You started saying yes when your insides were screaming run. You started lying when your soul was begging for the truth. You started living a life that wasn't your own. You started living a life in which you were a shadow. And the further you went, the less there was of you. You became a reaction. You became a reflection of other people's expectations. You became something you didn't want to be. Because it's scary to admit your shadow. But it's even scarier to spend your life obeying it. You didn't walk away from yourself. You just let someone else's pain live inside you. Comfort that destroys. You found a place where the pain doesn't feel so acute. Where everything is familiar. Predictable. Comfortable. It's not joy. It's not inspiration. It's just a zone where you cannot think. Not take risks. No living. Comfort has become your cage. It's soft. It's warm. But it holds you in. It keeps you from moving. Because moving is risky. It's uncomfortable. It means being vulnerable again. Going back to yourself again. And you didn't know if you were ready for that. You began to live on pause. As if the present moment is temporary. And the present is somewhere later. After. Someday. But it doesn't come. Because you're not going. You're not afraid of failure. You're afraid of losing the cage you're used to. The person you were meant to be. There's an image inside of you. It's not on the cover. It's not on TV. It's inside you. It's you, but different. Someone who hears himself. Who speaks the truth. Who doesn't lie to himself, even when he's scared. Someone who walks. In spite of everything. You felt him. When you were silent. When you looked out the window and couldn't figure out what was missing. When everything seems fine, but something hurts. It's not longing. It's a memory. The memory of what you were supposed to be. You're not. Not yet. but he's not going anywhere. It's waiting, watching you from the inside. Not with judgment, with hope. Because he's you, the real you. You didn't just betray your legend. You betrayed who you could have been. The awakening and the return. Sometimes it starts suddenly. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes after pain. Sometimes in silence. But always from within. Something cracks. Something is calling. Something won't let you be silent anymore. You begin to feel. First fear. Then truth. Then freedom. It doesn't mean giving up everything. It means starting to hear yourself. Take one step at a time. Not backwards, but inward. Your legend didn't go anywhere. She waited. And now she's speaking again. Not loudly, but clearly. And you're listening. Because you cannot listen anymore. The legend doesn't die. It waits. And the longer you've been silent, the louder her voice will become. The legend is not the target. It's you. You didn't come into this world by accident. Not in the sense of some plan or biological circumstance, but deeper, on the level of something that cannot be explained. You were summoned, called, appeared with something that already knew where to go. This knowledge had no words, no ability to formulate goals, no calculating steps. It just burned in your chest, like an inexplicable yes to life. You knew. You couldn't explain it, but you knew. That was your legend. Not a profession. Not a role. Not a dream of glory. It was the stream you were meant to follow. Your trajectory, your shape of light, your pattern on the fabric of the world. You felt it as a child, in those moments when you looked out the window, withdrew into yourself, drew something, remained silent, played alone, and it was as if the world parted to show you. Here you are. Not what you will become. It's who you are. But no one explained how to keep that fire burning. Instead, they started training you. Unobtrusively. Gently. With love and betrayal at the same time. You were supposed to be comfortable. Obedient. Successful. Appropriate. You weren't supposed to listen, you were supposed to follow. Not to seek, but to repeat. Not to feel, but to fulfill. And then you began to silence your voice. A little at first, doubtful. Then harder, ashamed. You learned to laugh at yourself when you were really hurting. You learned to be silent when everything inside you was screaming. You learned to hide your eyes because they were too much alive, too real, too wild. You wanted to remain yourself, but to survive. And then you got confused, you started surviving and called it yourself. At some point, you stopped hearing the call. You became an adult. Busy. Rational. Productive. Pragmatic. You've learned how to cope. Achieve. Settle. You may even have been successful in someone else's movie. But inside, there's an emptiness. Not tragedy, not depression, not screaming. It's the emptiness. A thin layer of oblivion between you and yourself. You just forgot. Not suddenly, gradually. And the voice became a faint noise somewhere in the back of your mind. You learned not to hear it. Not because he stopped talking. It's because you pretended it wasn't there for too long. You didn't betray the dream. You betrayed the call. The purity with which you came. The truth that needed no explanation. The depth that needed no words. But she didn't leave. That's the paradox. You can't kill it. You can only muffle it. To push it away. To devalue it. But it lives on in the form of dissatisfaction. The feeling that you're not living your life. In the form of a strange pain when everything is fine, but something is wrong. You've learned to deal with it. Work. Entertainment. Relationships. Success. You've built walls behind which you can no longer hear your heart calling you back. And now it feels like it never did. But it was. It just doesn't call anymore because it's tired of screaming into the void. Conclusion. Legend doesn't die. It just fades into silence if you ignore it for too long. But one day you'll hear that whisper again. And if you're not scared, you'll start the comeback. You didn't just betray the call. You built something very convincing in its place. A mask. An image. An illusion of yourself. You didn't build it on purpose. You assembled it from the looks of others, from praise and criticism, from what they wanted from you and what you were running away from. It wasn't a conscious choice. It was a necessity. a survival instinct, a desire to be needed, a hatred of being rejected. You didn't become you. You became someone easier to accept. You wear that mask every day, smiling when it's empty. You speak when silence could save the day. You agree when there's protest inside. Forgive when your heart is torn apart. This mask has taught you how to survive in a world where it's dangerous to be yourself. But the mask is not armor. It's a shroud. It doesn't protect you. It buries you alive. As long as you live with it, you're not living. You're just functioning. And the worst part is you start to believe that's who you are. You forget what your real voice sounds like. You forget how you felt when something was truly important. You forget why you came into this world. The mask is convenient. It gives you a role. It guarantees safety. It makes you understandable, explainable, socially acceptable. But that security is a trap. It's a cage with velvet walls. You don't suffer in it. You just die slowly, unnoticed at first, then habitually. And one day, finally, you look at yourself in the mirror and you see someone. Not an enemy, not a stranger, more like an empty shell that was once alive. You don't hate this person. You just don't recognize him. And then you start protecting the mask. You become its guardian. If someone gets too close, you push them away. If someone sees through you, you get angry. If life demands a real answer, you run away. And so you keep betraying your legend, every day a little bit at a time in little things. You don't do anything evil. You just don't live up to the call anymore. You no longer remember what it's like to be real. The mask is comfortable. There's less pain in it. But there's no life in it. You don't take risks. But you don't burn. You don't fall. But you don't rise. You become steady, moderate, accepted. You're dead on the inside, but comfortable on the outside. And here's the irony. The mask you created to survive has become the thing that kills you. Conclusion. You're not weak. You've just spent too long wearing a mask that's comfortable to die in. But it can be taken off. Not right away. Not completely. But from the first breath without it, you'll be back to yourself. Within himself. Not with the story that others will tell, but with the power that burns in the very heart of his being. This legend is not written in words. It lives in impulses, in dreams, in that shiver that runs through your body when you touch something real. The child knows his legend. He doesn't think about it, he lives it. When a 5-year-old boy says he's going to be an astronaut, he's not making career plans. He hears the call of his soul, which aspires to infinity. When a girl dances in an empty room, she is not rehearsing. She is expressing the music that runs in her blood. But the adult world is afraid of legends. They seem dangerous, unpredictable, uncontrollable. And then begins a process that could be called killing without blood. You're told, be realistic. You are explained that dreams are childish nonsense, that you need to think about the future, about stability, about what people will say. The first blow to the legend is struck through fear. You are taught to fear failure more than the betrayal of your own nature. You are persuaded that safety is more important than truth, that the approval of others is more valuable than inner agreement with yourself. And you begin to believe these lies because the alternative seems too frightening. The legend doesn't die instantly. It slowly suffocates under the weight of other people's expectations, under the layers of compromises you make with the world. Every time you choose the convenient over the right, every time you remain silent where you should speak, every time you agree with what goes against your nature, you cut another piece off your soul. And there comes a moment when you wake up and you don't recognize yourself in the mirror. Not outwardly. Outwardly, everything may be fine. But there, in the depths, where the fire used to burn, now there is only ash. You look at your life and realize, it's not your life. It's the life of what others wanted you to be. It's a life assembled from the wreckage of other people's ideas of how to live. The legend doesn't die immediately. It slowly suffocates under layers of other people's expectations. Man does not put on masks out of malice. He does it to survive in a world that does not accept him for who he is. The first mask appears in childhood, the mask of the obedient child who does not cause problems. Then the mask of a good student who gets the approval of teachers is added. Then there is the mask of a successful employee, a pleasant conversationalist, a caring parent. Each mask serves a specific purpose. It protects from the pain of rejection, from the fear of being misunderstood, from the terror of being alone. But there is a fine line between adapting and betraying oneself. Adaptation is the ability to speak the language of the world without forgetting one's own language. Betrayal is when you forget what language your soul speaks. Women often put on a mask of perfection. They learn to be comfortable, non-confrontational, always ready to help and support. They hide their rage, their ambition, their wild nature under layers of smiles and agreement. They are told that a woman must be soft, and they forget that softness without strength is not a virtue but a surrender. Men choose the mask of impenetrability. They learn not to show weakness, not to express emotions, to always be strong and in control. They are told that a real man does not cry, and they forget that tears are not a sign of weakness, but a manifestation of humanity. They turn into stone warriors who have won all the battles, but lost their souls. Society creates the illusion of choice by offering many ready-made roles. You can be a successful businessman or a creative person, a housewife or a careerist, a rebel or a conformist. But all these roles are just variations of one theme: being who others want you to be. The real choice is the right to be yourself, without fitting into any patterns. A mask becomes dangerous not when you put it on, but when it grows on your face. When you can't tell where the role ends, and you begin. When you've been playing someone else's life for so long that you forget how to play your own. The most dangerous lie is the one you believe yourself. The control system doesn't use chains and locks. It is much more subtle. It forces you to become your own jailer. The mechanism is simple and effective. First, you are programmed to react in certain ways, and then you make sure that you don't go beyond those limits. The programming begins in childhood. You are taught that love must be earned through good behavior. That acceptance only comes to those who meet expectations. That to be different is to be alone. These attitudes penetrate so deeply that they become part of your personality. You begin to think they are your own beliefs, when in fact they are the voices of those who once had power over you. Fear of rejection becomes the primary tool of control. You don't need to explain why you can't be yourself. You know the consequences yourself. You may not be. Getting back to yourself doesn't happen overnight. It is a long process, full of setbacks and breakthroughs. But every step along the way brings a sense of rightness that has been missing for years. You begin to recognize yourself in your actions, hear your voice in your words, see your face in the mirror. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find the one thing that really matters. Returning to the legend begins with a simple but revolutionary decision: stop betraying yourself. This doesn't mean becoming selfish or irresponsible. It means to start living in accordance with your inner truth, even if it's inconvenient for those around you. The process of reconnecting with your true nature is like an archaeological dig. You peel away layer after layer of superficial material, other people's opinions, imposed roles, false beliefs about how you should be. Underneath all this archaeological material, something amazing is revealed. You yourself, the real, living, unique you. The shedding of masks is a process that is both frightening and liberating. It is frightening to be left without familiar defenses, without familiar roles that gave you a sense of identity. But it is liberating to feel how easy it is to breathe when you don't have to pretend. How easy life becomes when you don't have to constantly monitor every word and movement. Accepting your shadow is one of the hardest parts of coming back. The shadow is everything in you that you thought was unacceptable: anger, selfishness, sexuality, ambition, weakness, fears. For years you've tried to get rid of it, but the shadow doesn't disappear. It just hides and controls you from your subconscious. Accepting the shadow means recognizing, I'm not perfect, and that's okay. Accepting the light can be difficult too. Many people fear their strength more than their weakness. They fear their talents, their beauty, their ability to influence others. They feel that being prominent is selfish. But hiding your light is also a form of selfishness. You rob the world of the gift you could give it. The courage to be yourself in a conformist world takes a special kind of strength. It is the courage to go against the tide, to not fear judgment, to not need constant approval. It is the courage to say no to what goes against your nature and yes to what resonates with your soul, even if it seems strange or wrong to others. Returning to the legend is not a return to a childlike state. It is the integration of childlike spontaneity with adult wisdom. It is the ability to dream like a child but act like an adult. It is the joining of innocence with experience, openness with discernment, trust with caution. The paradox is that the more you become yourself, the closer you become to others. Real relationships are only possible between real people. When you shed your masks, you give permission for others to be authentic too. Your authenticity becomes an invitation to authenticity. The legend never died. It was waiting for you to return. Living in alignment with your inner truth dramatically changes everything. Work stops being just a way to make money. It becomes a form of self-expression. Relationships stop being a social necessity. They become a space for growth and love. Every day is no longer a repeat of yesterday. It becomes an opportunity for creativity and discovery. When you are living your life rather than playing someone else's role, energy flows freely. What used to require tremendous effort comes easily. What seemed impossible becomes natural. You discover resources in yourself that you didn't even know existed. The transformation of relationships happens automatically. People who were there only because you played a role that was convenient for them gradually leave your life. It can be painful, but it is necessary. The space vacated is taken by those who appreciate the real you, who resonate with your authentic frequency. New relationships are built on other principles. Instead of mutual use comes mutual enrichment. Instead of trying to change each other, there is acceptance and support for growth. Instead of games and manipulation, straightforwardness and honesty. Instead of dependency, there is mutual respect for everyone's freedom.